I think it's fair to say literally the entire world is holding their breath right now because we're in a really tense time. Will America go to war with Iran?
An unprecedented military airlift is underway. On June 16th, at least 32 tanker aircraft departed from American bases toward Europe.
America is already positioning itself around Iran. I mean, first of all, it should be noted, we already do surround Iran. We're in Pakistan and Iraq and Afghanistan and even Turkmenistan and Turkey and Saudi Arabia. We've literally been waiting for this moment for decades, which is why this is so terrifying. There are forces in our government that have wanted regime change here for literally decades. We could be entering the climax of a very long rivalry.
Departed from American bases toward Europe, landing at key stopover bases for Middle East operations. The mission remains undisclosed, but it's not for some military exercise. A fleet of 32 tankers can support well over 200 combat aircraft operating at the same time.
There's no question that the U.S. military is making moves. They are obviously approaching Iran. However, this is a take that I feel like nobody is talking about. I feel like there's a chance, maybe a small chance, but there's a chance this could be a bluff. The U.S. is not going to say, hey, Israel, you're on your own. We're not going to do anything to help protect you. They're just not going to do that. They have to at least pretend like they're going to enter the war in order to possibly de-escalate. Again, it's unlikely, but if the US is making moves like they are going to enter, it might bring Iran more to the table. It might let them, well, concede peacefully to some things. I mean, one thing's for sure, I think we can say this is probably the weakest moment we've ever seen the Iranian regime.
Meanwhile, on the other end of the globe, the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group has cancelled its scheduled port call in Vietnam and left the South China Sea.
Yep, they're going
it
to
is
the
headed toward
Indian
the
Ocean.
Middle East to join the aircraft carriers that are already there. This kind of buildup usually signals preparations for a large-scale air campaign. If America plans to support Israel's campaign offensively, these tanker planes and aircraft carriers would be among the most critical assets.
Yeah, this is what you would need to do. Now, again, just because we are making all these moves doesn't necessarily mean, oh, the US is definitely going to war. It's possible. Yes, it's definitely possible, but it's not a guarantee. I mean, again, there's an argument to be made that this is kind of a move that could end up just kind of being a bluff to get tensions to calm down. The US might be thinking, at the very least, if we put a bunch of things on the Iranian borders, it might scare them enough to stop bombing Israel and finally de-escalate the situation.
These tanker planes and aircraft carriers would be among the most critical assets. In the coming days, the United States may find cause to get directly involved, if it hasn't already. The drumbeats are distant, but they're marching this way. For days, Netanyahu has urged Trump to join the war against Iran.
Oh, yeah.
He may have finally given in to the pressure.
He's all over our US media. Like, Bibi is everywhere, and he's saying, like, if he's saying the normal stuff, if Israel falls, then it's going to be France, and then it's going to be the UK, it's going to be the USA. And I'm going to be honest, like, I'm not really buying that. Like, I mean, you don't need to know that deep into geopolitics to understand, like, Iran is not going to destroy France or the UK, or, at least not in the foreseeable future. Like I said, the threat of them getting a nuclear device really will change the diplomatic situation. It would not be good. It would definitely not be good. It complicates everything. Then that regime is going to pretty much be in power for, who knows, the foreseeable future. Just look at North Korea. We can't do anything about Kim Jong-un. He's got nukes. We kind of got to keep that dude in power to avoid the chaotic situation of like a civil war.
He may have finally given in to the pressure. Recently, he demanded Iran's unconditional surrender and claimed the US knows the supreme leader's exact location but will not target him for now.
So again, what this is really going to come down to, I think this video gets into it a little bit, is basically what's happening with the missiles firing back and forth. Ultimately, it comes down to how many ballistic missiles do the Iranians have versus how many interceptors do the Israelis have. We don't really know the numbers on each side. I've heard Iran has 3,000 ballistic missiles, but who knows? I mean, that's just a guesstimate. And then obviously Israel is not going to say exactly how many interceptors, how much they have to be able to stop the Iranian missiles, because if they let that information go, then, well, that gives the Iranians a target number. It's like, oh, all we have to do is get to 500 and then we can just let them all fly.
This story was picked up by nearly 250 sources, so it made quite the headlines. Less noticed, however, is the story of who might replace the supreme leader. Days earlier,
the Shah of Iran, the old monarch, coming out making a video yesterday talking about how I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if he wants to be brought back into power. This is like this. Honestly, it feels like classic Cold War tactics. You know what I mean? Yeah, like to stop. The Cold War. It's like, okay, to stop communism, we're going to reinstall the old monarchy. It's just kind of funny because the Iranian Revolution was 1979. And for them to go back to the Shah over, we're almost 50 years later. I mean, that's crazy. That's not unheard of, though. That's not unheard of. For example, I think of the last Tsar of Bulgaria. He served as the monarch back in 1946, but then later was democratically elected as prime minister in 2001. That's literally so insane. So though, like, insanely unlikely, I mean, it's not unheard of. It would have been about 50 years since his dad, this man's dad, was in power.
However, is the story of who might replace the supreme leader. Days earlier, Reza Pahlavi, Iran's exiled crown prince, called on the country's security forces to cut ties with the regime and support a mass uprising.
So crazy.
This is a major development. Crazy. Iran has no coherent opposition to speak of, which is why all previous uprisings failed. But with the crown prince stepping in as a dark horse candidate, a unified opposition could emerge.
There's no way this is gonna work, right? That's my first thought. Like, the Iranians, most of the Iranians have no idea who this dude is. I mean, I don't think the Iranian people, unless the current regime just looks so bad that the population of Iran just is like, honestly, whatever, we'll literally try anything else. I mean, they themselves, the people themselves, have to be in such an unhappy state, basically. Welcome to the underground.
Israel's airstrikes have hit hard, but not deep enough. Satellite imagery shows damage at Natanz, which is Iran's main uranium facility. Key buildings have been leveled, and more than a dozen top scientists have been killed. This building, for instance, turns weapons-grade uranium into uranium metal, which forms the core of a nuclear weapon. Rebuilding it could take...
Again, I think what's really happening here is that Israel and probably in turn the USA both see Iran in such a weak state, weaker than they've ever really seen it before. The Ayatollah is like 85 years old. They just had their first like president / prime minister. They're not looking too good. Israel hit them really hard recently. I think it's a combination of, well, I don't know. In terms of the whole topic of like how close they are to building a nuke, I have no idea. I mean, I'm skeptical of all the information that they're literally days, months away, years, decades. I'm not sure, but I think a big piece of the puzzle that's missing is I think a lot of people in the West and geopolitical analysts do see that the regime is quite possibly on its last leg. But if they were to build nukes, well, then they're solidified, like I keep saying. Like, then they're going to be stuck there because we can't afford to have an Iran with nukes fall into chaos.
Take up to a year. However, the real problem remains. Iran's most protected site, the Fordo fuel enrichment plant, is buried deep inside a mountain near Qom. Encased in reinforced concrete, the facility is believed to be beyond the reach of any Israeli weapon known to exist.
And again, the Iranians have had decades to prepare for this. I feel like every 5 to 10 years, there's always threats that the U.S. is finally going to bomb Iran. So I'm not surprised that they have all these bunkers and they're scattered throughout the countryside, and they're heavily fortified. Like I said in the previous video, like they have been waiting for this for literally decades.
It was built in secret and only publicly unveiled in 2009. Since then, Fordo has been at the center of international attempts to curb Iran's nuclear program. But Iran has other ultra-secure facilities to rely on besides Fordo. Tehran has recently been building an even deeper, more fortified site known as Pickaxe Mountain Plant. It is built straight into a mountain just a few kilometers south of Natanz. While Fordo is believed to have 2 tunnel entrances, Pickaxe has at least 4, making it much harder to seal off by bombing. Its underground chambers are also believed to offer more.
So the big argument here why the U.S. is going to tell the American people, especially the American media, keeps hammering into our head, is that the U.S. has to join because of our bunker bombers, which have to be delivered by our B-2s, which the Israelis do not have. So that is why maybe Bibi is very desperate to pull the USA in, and that's also why maybe certain forces in the American government are trying to convey to the American people, like, hey, we have to join in because only we have this technology and we've got to wipe them out. And yeah.
More floor space. Iran has barred the IAEA from inspecting the site, so most of what is known about Pickaxe comes from open source leaks and a fair amount of speculation. However, if Iran decided to assemble a nuclear weapon while under attack, this is the place they would do it.
This is such a key moment, and it's so important. What happens right now is going to affect pretty much the region and the world for decades, like literally possibly for decades, depending on where Iran is to getting a nuclear weapon. Again, I keep going back to this example, but once North Korea got a nuclear weapon, it's over. It is over. We cannot do anything about that. Kim Jong-un and his dynasty, they're going to have to be left in power. Like, the West can't even afford to mess with it. You kind of just got to let them do their own thing. So the U.S. has obviously tried many different ways to work with Iran in the past. Like Obama had his nuclear deal where they would check in to see if they're enriching the uranium and things like that. And then there was talks that Trump was going to do that same thing. Then the Israelis, jumped in, started the attack. Now the missiles are flying from both sides. This is a really tense situation. And again, I can't stress this enough. Like, what happens here in the coming days, weeks, maybe months, but I'm not sure if it'll go on for months. It definitely might, is going to affect the world for decades. The world. Because if the Iranian regime does end up getting nukes, then they're going to be stuck forever. They will be there in power probably for a century, maybe. Or we wipe them out right now. That's probably what some certain forces are thinking. If we just enter the war, help out the Israelis, start bombing the crap out of them from the air, then maybe we can topple the regime, put in a Western power. It's so messy. It's getting crazy.
Conventional bombs simply can't reach it. Israel's best bunker busters, like the US-supplied GBU-28, can penetrate up to 6 meters of concrete, but that is nowhere near enough for the hardened chambers of Pickaxe or even Fordo. The only weapon that stands a chance of getting through is the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator. This 13,000 kilogram bomb can smash through 61 meters of concrete. It is the most sophisticated bunker buster we know of.
And yeah, these things they have multiple detonators. So there's a detonator to get through the first half, and then another detonator to get through the next half. They detonate at different points. That's why they're called bunker busters, to actually get down into the bunker and do one final explosion, wiping out anything.
But only the U.S. Air Force can deploy it using the B-2 bomber. No other aircraft is configured to carry it, and Israel has no B-2 bombers. So, to destroy Iran's nuclear program, Natanz, Fordo, and Pickaxe will have to be taken down.
Because talks have completely collapsed too, because of basically, allegedly, Trump was going to bring back the kind of Iranian nuclear deal where we were kind of examining them, watching them, making sure they don't build a nuke. But then the Israelis attacked. Now it seems like that's all thrown out the window, which might be even more incentive that, the Americans are going to join in on the Israeli side, because now we've pretty much destroyed any diplomatic options, at least while Trump is in charge. He's got another 4 years. More than likely, the Iranians are not going to do any more deals. They're going to have 4 years to basically build their own nukes. unless the USA does join in. Even if the USA does join in, I think we're just talking about air raids for now. Please, God, I hope it's just air raids in general. I think that's the only thing that's being discussed by the American government forces right now. But basically, they're thinking if they don't do it now, then they're going to, the Iranians are going to be able to they're just going to go all in on building this nuke for the next 4 years.
And only America can pull the trigger. Admittedly, air power alone may not be enough. Special forces would have to be deployed on the ground to confirm the destruction of each site, but the bottom line is that American involvement, especially in aerial operations, is inevitable.
Inevitable. He literally dropped inevitable. That is scary. Now, keep in mind too. I want to harken back to the Russian invasion of Ukraine happened. We knew that was going to happen, like literally 3 months beforehand. It was all over the internet. It was just the general public weren't really paying attention. This is a unique situation because it does kind of feel like most of, at least America. Sorry, I should say America, the American general public. Most people are currently watching this very, very closely, probably because we Americans literally attacked 2 direct neighbors. We attacked Afghanistan and then we attacked Iraq. So when it was Russia invading Ukraine, I think a lot of Americans were kind of checked out. It didn't involve us, weren't really paying attention, but the info was right there. For like 3 months, it was like, Russia's bringing in troops to Ukraine. Russia's bringing in troops to Ukraine. I think a lot of people thought it was just going to be a bluff. Which, funny enough, I started this video off saying that the Americans could be bluffing. I still think that's a possibility, but also that might age like milk. I think you kind of, like I said, you kind of have to go over there and pretend like you are going to enter. That's the only way you might be able to get the Iranians to de-escalate. But I think it is kind of interesting to see how the world is so focused in on this, especially the American public, because I think we all know that we will do this. I mentioned Iraq and Afghanistan, but there's also Libya. There's also what other? There's like we were bombing like 7 different countries in the Middle East, like not even that long ago.
Most of the US tanker aircraft landed in Italy, Spain, and Germany at bases that typically serve as launch pads for operations in the Middle East. Morro Air Base in Spain is one such example. It is a place where tanker aircraft specialize in taking off to refuel B-2 bombers in the air. Doing so would then allow the bombers to keep flying to the Middle East to carry out attacks.
Bro, I'm just thinking to myself, like, bro, how many times are we gonna do this? How many times is this gonna happen? How many times are we gonna see like the American Air Force, the American Navy, the American military in the Middle East? Like, it just does not stop. Like, it feels already like Operation Desert Storm, which was over 30 years ago now. Like, bro, it's just, bro. It just does not stop.
So, what we're seeing is the formation.
It reminds me of that meme. Born too late to be deployed to the Middle East. Born too early to be deployed to the Middle East. Born just in time to be deployed in the Middle East. Back to the sandbox.
Of an air corridor designed to sustain a prolonged assault. A fleet of 32 tankers can keep over 200 combat aircraft in the air at the same time. There is no need for that kind of support in a region where the US already has a massive footprint. So, either America is preparing to strike Iran directly, or it is setting up a refueling mission over Iraq or Syria to let Israeli jets carry more bombs instead of external fuel tanks. The latter is the safer bet for the United States. With that many US tanker aircraft
yeah, I mean, that's kind of the hope. You gotta just hope that it's just there to support Israel and or scare the Iranian regime. But like I said, I think it's about 50-50 as I'm like kind of go over, as I'm like kind of talking about these thoughts out loud though and rewatching this video, I'm kind of just like, yeah, I'm leaning more and more like they're probably going to do something. Like we probably will see American aircraft dropping bombs on Iran kind of soonish.
Fueling Israeli
tomorrow.
jets, Israel can begin the second phase of the war, the Dahiya doctrine. And from here, things get dark really fast. The Dahiya doctrine is a controversial military strategy that involves the use of overwhelming firepower, including attacks on civilian infrastructure to deter enemies. It is named after a suburb of Beirut that was heavily bombed during the 2006 Lebanon War.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Israel, their military doctrines, their strategy here, they've just got to be ruthless because, and they've been since their conception in the 1940s. Like they have to be insanely aggressive. I mean, they're since their very conception. After World War II, they've just been a small nation surrounded by people that despise them. So their military doctrines are extremely ruthless.
The doctrine is designed to inflict massive destruction, pressure civilians to turn against local officials, and shift blame onto non-state actors who operate within civilian areas. Former Israeli General Gadi Eisenkot.
Yeah, I mean, they have two strategies here, Israel. Not only was there, they're trying to blow up nuclear facilities in Iran, but they're also trying to cause more chaos, as much chaos as possible, to possibly bring in regime change into Iran. If the Iranian people can rise up. Remember, the Ayatollah, the supreme leader of Iran, is 85 years old or something like that. So, again, that just kind of backs up more data that this is maybe the weakest we've seen the current heads of state of Iran. This is probably the weakest we've seen them in decades, if ever.
Described it bluntly.
Ever.
If a rocket is fired from a village, the entire village becomes a target. Israel is expected to apply that in Tehran, which would explain the additional tanker aircraft en route to the region. They're going to ramp up the aerial assault. The casualties would be enormous. Already, a mass exodus of civilians is underway, with many fleeing Tehran for safer ground. Critics argue the doctrine violates key principles of international law, namely the distinction between civilians and combatants, the requirement for proportionality, and...
Bro, I saw a video of a guy yesterday. He's an American. He's literally wearing a University of Minnesota sweatshirt. And I think he's biking through. He was just biking. I'm not sure what his plan was. I think he's biking through Asia. I don't know where he started exactly, but he's an American currently in Iran. And then this happened. And he's like, I don't even know what happened to that guy, but he knows he's probably going to get arrested if they catch him. I think he's biking or hiking. I'm not exactly sure. He thinks there's one open border through Iraq, so he's trying to hide from Iranian authorities to leave the country. So insane, so insane. I could honestly see myself do something to be in that situation. I'm not gonna lie. I would not put it past myself where I would find myself in Iran for whatever reason. I've never been to Iran. I've never even been close to Iran. But for some reason, I really felt that guy's pain because I'm like, honestly, that's some shit that would happen to me too.
And the prohibition on collective punishment under the Geneva Convention. That is all very true, but sometimes power makes its own rules, and the world has no choice but to move on.
All hell breaks loose.
This is the war American, Israeli, and Iranian policymakers have prepared for the last 40 years.
Yes, thank you for saying that. I keep saying that in these videos. We've probably longer. I mean, since the Iranian Revolution. I mean, they have been preparing for this. Iran really, I can't stress this enough, does not like the USA. Now, that doesn't mean that they would just build a nuke and immediately fire it, onto U.S. territory. There's a lot of forces in the U.S. media that are trying to scare you like that. We got to join in, because if we let the Iranians join it, get a nuke, they're immediately going to blast Los Angeles or something like that. That the chances of that are incredibly low, but there's a lot of fear-mongering happening with a lot of forces inside the U.S. media to get people to rally around this and to get the American public to be like, hey, let's do it. I don't think it's working, to be honest. Like I said, the American people, we are very isolationist, usually on both sides for the most part, but it's just our government that is not. And it doesn't really matter who's in charge. Doesn't matter Democrat or Republican, they're going to bomb the Middle East. That's just what they do.
It has all come down to this. Iran knows the United States is likely to join Israel in attacking its nuclear program. In anticipation, Iran has held back most of its hypersonic missiles, storing them deep underground in bunkers where Israeli bombs can't reach. These
until the U.S. gets involved. So that's the only thing. I have seen that, like, well, if the Iranians don't fire a lot of that stuff right now, then they risk it blowing up on the ground and being hit by the Israeli Air Force or the U.S. Air Force.
Missiles, designed to evade standard defenses, including the Iron Dome, are not meant for symbolic retaliation. They are reserved for targeted, high-impact strikes on key U.S. military assets across...
Well, the Iron Dome isn't really being used right now. It's some of their other systems. The Iron Dome is for, like, when people, like, fire rockets or drones in, like, more short-range stuff.
The periphery, if America gets involved directly. Iran's strategy could include military bases such as the British Air Force Base, Akrotiri, and the Andreas Papandreou Air Base, both in Cyprus. These two are used for surveillance and regional operations and would make for top priority targets. Other targets could include the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, which serves as America's main regional command center. Also at risk are the Qadisiyah Air Base and the Harir Air Base in Iraq, the Ali Al Salem Air Base and Camp Arifjan in Kuwait, the Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE,
That's so
the
crazy.
Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan, and the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. Also, within range are the US carrier strike groups in the Red Sea and Eastern Mediterranean.
There's a lot of things. I mean, even though the U.S. is literally, our territory is on the other side of the globe. I just showed the map of U.S. bases all over the region, and we have a fleet that's constantly over there protecting global trade. Oh man, yeah, the economy is going to take, the world economy is going to be in a tough spot if this does happen. I would not be surprised if the stock market tanks, world stock market and U.S. stock market. Might be a good time to buy though, buy the dip. Well, unless World War III breaks out.
But also the Naval Support Activity Base in Bahrain, which is...
My dad was actually stationed in Bahrain in 2001. He was just a part of the Coast Guard, but that's pretty scary that Bahrain could get hit. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people, even if you're watching this video, you might know somebody in one of these bases. That is very terrifying.
Home to the US 5th Fleet. If Iran fires its hypersonic missiles at these sites, the casualties would be massive, especially if equipped with dirty bombs to scatter radioactive materials. Despite Iran's efforts to hide...
I'm saying it right now. I said it before. A war with Iran is not going to be the Iraq war in 2003. It's not going to be the Afghanistan war. It's going to be nothing like that. It is going to be, I mean, depending on how tense it gets, but it would be, I want to say like 10 times worse. I want to put that specific multiplier on it. I think it would be honestly 10 times worse, at least. Like both of those combined. Imagine occupying a nation like Iran. We couldn't even occupy Afghanistan. And like we might have toppled Saddam in Iraq. Iran is a completely different beast. It is a completely different beast. Geographically, it's bigger. It's like 90 million Iranians. Oh, what a mess.
its arsenal and nuclear sites deep underground, the US military has weapons that can still reach them. Tehran understands that if the conflict turns into a full-scale war, even its most secure sites might not stay safe for long.
Bro, I'm stressing out just watching this video. I'm like stressing out. Full-scale war with Iran. Oh man, I see so many like Americans like just super like overly confident that we would just like rip apart Iran. Bro, it doesn't like. Did you see what happened to Iraq afterwards? Did you like? I'm not saying that we couldn't topple the government, but the chaos that comes out, even in Libya, Look what happened. Libya is still a mess. Look what happened. Look what happened to Libya. Look what happened to Iraq, and out of the vacuum of power that rose out of that region with IS. I'm not sure I'm allowed to say that still anymore, but that whole organization that came out of Iraq and Syria is. You're talking Iran? Just look at this map right here. Look at how much bigger Iran is compared to Iraq or Afghanistan. Look at the geography too. Iraq is a very flat place. It's like just literally a desert. Iran is Afghanistan on steroids. A little bit of Iraq and Afghanistan, combine that, times it by 10, that's Iran.
It is carefully weighing when, where, and if to use its most powerful weapons.
And again,
this will not end well. Many will die. But
yes,
the last time someone struck US bases, they got a glimpse of the portable sun.
Oh, geez. Crazy video. Just crazy video. I mean, I don't know. I hope this does... Full-scale war, that's crazy. Trump tweeted out like he knows where the supreme leader is, or the prime minister of Iran, and he can take them out if he wants. Yeah, again, toppling the current regime of Iran is one thing, but then coming in and forcing stability, we couldn't do it in Afghanistan. We couldn't do it in Iraq. Oh, geez. I'm freaking out. Just, I want to throw up a little bit. Because I understand the situation. And it's crazy because we didn't even get into Russia. We literally did not get into Russia. Russia does not want this to happen. Russia is staying out of it. But if the U.S. joins in, then Russia's definitely going to have a say. Now, again, Russia does have their hands full, which goes into more support that this is the weakest we've seen the Iranians in a while, which scares me because that makes me think, oh, wow, the U.S. might actually try something crazy here. But that is the threat, the World War III threat. And China, I mean, I don't really know. I would mostly focus, if the U.S. and Israel are looking like they're going to topple the current Iranian regime, I would mostly focus on what Russia reacts to, not so much China. But that's all obviously a big worry as well. This is a mess. I'm going to go throw up. These are the patrons for this month. If you'd like to join, check that link down below to patreon.com. If Greenland is the largest island, then Australia is its own continent again, right? Drew Supremacy League. Drew's Argentinian Trust Fund. Rip Grandpa. Connor Pavlik. Carmel S. DOOCHBAGGINS. Alexander the Terrible. Fredrik Tibblin. KingBearHaze. LuxembourgLover. Miglu the Goat. Nolan. NordTyrol. And Tambre.